tonight's topic is blended families, and you saying that, trying to see, I think of just the walk of life I've had with it.
Right,
You gotta always take that little hit to the shoulder sometimes because you're not always right. You know what I mean?
right,
You're not always wrong either. You know what I mean? So it kind of can go both ways. But you made a really valid point there. But I think therapy and being able to accept taking therapy, you got to be open to what they're going to say. Their feedback.
right.
That's huge.
Correct.
I mean, a lot of people think that they already have a preset notion that they're gonna walk in there and it's gonna be all about themselves. You know what I mean? And I know
Or the other person.
I've
Mhm.
had therapy with one of my children. I had therapy with my hubby. You just will get an eye opener if you go in that door thinking that you it's gonna be your show and it's gonna be your time to perform and get your point across. So that was a good one. So
Yeah, especially if you find a good therapist.
yeah,
So because
Mm.
like CG was saying, being ambushed, and I am very surprised. Even though I'm not a therapist in any way, I'm very surprised that any therapist could be primed by a patient so
I,
that when the other person comes in, that oh my gosh, it's
I'm
never
I,
supposed to be like that.
I'm pretty well versed in dealing with mental health stuff because I've been in and out of therapy for a very long time. So it's gotten to the point right now where I could tell, like I walk as soon as I can walk into an office, I'm looking at your books, I'm looking at everything. Like I done scoped
Right.
out the there. I can tell who really about their craft and who really isn't. And there's a lot of
Amen.
and in this in that field, there's a lot of one trick ponies. They can only talk about one subject. So if they take on clients in other areas, like they might not really know what they're doing. So it
that's a
was really
good one.
upsetting for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like you said, dealing with um, our topic today of blended families and how that can align, how it can help, therapy can help blended families, how what the struggle is, because it can be. I was a part of a blended family. And, when I married the first time, I had a blended family. And of course, when I married again, because I was much older, of course, it was a blended family as well. But those different stages of being in a blended family also make a difference. So the first time I had a blended family, it was young children involved.
Mhm.
Whereas when I was married the second time, the children were all adults or just about adults.
Yeah.
And so that makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
And being able to navigate and learning, not necessarily in a negative way, but how manipulative children can be, even when they're young,
Woohoo!
and not even knowing that that's what they're doing. And if you don't have the tools and the skills to recognize that, you'll fall right into it. And I swear, children are born knowing how to conquer and divide. And
Oh, I got a
so,
story.
Ooh, you
I got a
ain't never
story for
said
that. I
that.
got a
That
they
story.
is
know,
that. Bing,
they
we got a
know,
bell here. Bing, 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 bing.
they
I got one
know.
for that.
It's like they have this intuitive nature, and they just kind of know, ooh, things are kind of tight right now. Oh, this is the time I need to cut up and start showing out, and just it's like innate or something, like they just know. And if you're not on top of it or haven't had experience with it, it can be the downfall of a good relationship if the right tools aren't there.
I got a story for
Been
that.
there, done that.
These have
Yeah,
been.
so see.
I think all the good. I think the right team is here tonight because I think everybody can tell a little story, but keep it respectful to anybody that may
Right.
listen. But I think we everybody has a story about being a part of a blended family. I was the same way like you, Chauncey. I was a part of a blended family with my ex, and I'm a part of a blended family with my husband now. And one thing I think I have learned by being in a blended family is I definitely had to be silent sometimes and
Mhm.
yeah, I really mean that. Be silent.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because it doesn't help when you feel like you have to get your point across a lot of times. And when you say like my kids are grown, and especially with my current husband, when we got together, all our kids was little. You know what I mean? but my my husband didn't have my husband has like and y'all know my husband, he's so like mellow with anything. He doesn't, I mean, I could tell you if he saw some crazy shit out the side the door, he just gonna be like looking at it and be like, yo, that's none of my business. I really don't care. You know what I mean? Like where I probably can get pulled into it more than he can get pulled into it. And the same thing with like families, you know what I mean? He would not he would not think twice, like just for instance, if, and this is not the truth, if like my brother Tony didn't really care for him or something like that, or my daughter acted shitty to him, you know, he would just kind of play it low, you know what I mean? Where I said I had to sit silent, silent is sometimes when you are in the midst of this blended family, it's probably a lot of times outside agitators, even, you know, that are not even the children, can
Right.
help fuel things on. You see what
For
I'm saying?
sure.
And make it unbearable.
Right.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
I agree with that
yeah,
wholeheartedly.
being silent sometimes can, just with like with anybody, if you know somebody who's very gossipy or likes to start trouble, being silent sometimes can silence the noise. You know what I mean? So I think I learned that in being in blended families, but that's my thing. And at the end of the day, I ain't gonna put you on the spot, CG. CG is a part of like my blended family from my ex, right? And I love CG. I tell you all the time, CG is my nephew. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I
Mhm.
love him dearly. You know what I mean? I love him dearly. He's always treated me like an aunt. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you know, it's a lot of good things come from blending a family, because I saw this quote that says, you know, if you love somebody that's your family, regardless if it's blood involved, family is family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that means a lot to me. But that's just my take on it. Let's go around and get some perspectives. So, Chauncey, you want to go again? You have a perspective?
My perspective with blended families is it takes work and be willing to do the work. If you go into it thinking that it's all good from the get-go, you're going to get a very rude awakening. But you have to be committed to that blended family and all that comes with it, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think people think they're ready, but depending on their experience, they're not always ready. And don't expect it to be exactly the way your situation is or was when you come into it. I think if you prepare it that way, you're okay. My grandmother, my father's mother, told my mother, previous to my mother and my dad breaking up, you know, sometimes a step parent can love your child better than a natural born parent. That was what my grandmother told my mother. And that was part of what had given her the strength to make a decision that she needed to do what she needed to do. And so that's my take on it.
CG?
Uh, I mean, I'm still kind of new to this, so it's for me, it's just a real, it's a huge balancing act. It's a lot of shutting up and listening. It's
Yep.
a lot of listening. It's a lot of looking in the mirror. It's a lot of looking at, it's just a lot of self-reflection, and it's more listening than talking, at least from my experience.
Yeah, I mean, you make a valid point. You have a young child, and you know you have to make it work the best way you can. It can be like Chauncey said, it can be really hard, especially when children, you know what I mean, take note that there is some chaos or controversy going on. Some children may take it to the heart and just start to not perform the way they should or regress or anything. But some kids little kids are opportunists. Really, and it could be it could be very detrimental to an existing relationship that's going on. And I could tell you, it's a lot of work, a lot of work. Celeste, you want to go ahead?
I'm gonna practice that silent thing that you talk about because I'm not that person at all.
Me either, but I had to
I
learn to be it.
and I haven't even thought about it. I have been part of a blended family. I don't know when I haven't been like really. So Even if it was just a cousin coming to live with us for forever, that was the new sister. Or
Right.
when I first got married, my son, I inherited him from the marriage.
Mhm.
And then now my grandchildren. But the one thing that I do remember in all of these situations is we played for keeps. So when you say CJ is your nephew, like all of my exes, they all still my nephew. Like we
That's
all,
right.
and we play for keeps. Even
But wait a minute, let me stop
Blood,
you. Everybody.
blood in, blood out.
Don't start
Now
that.
I know what she mean, Kim. But even my mother-in-law still calls me, and I still call her my mother-in-law. I mean, we play for keeps.
Yeah.
And I think it made it easier because we played for keeps. Like her mess was my mess
Yep.
because now we're family. So I think
Right.
it made it easier for us to hear each other and work it out and just, so
I agree with
it's
that
wonderful.
wholeheartedly.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Only thing I will say before I let you go, JS, I love CG because CG love me, but everybody don't get to come on. I'll tell you that. Everybody don't get to come
right,
on the trip.
right.
I'm telling you. So, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, so thankful to hear you say that because I'm like, okay, so I'm the only one on here, the porch today that's been in the in-law and outlaw category. Okay,
Oh, but
I'm the
you
only
No,
one up in
no,
there. All
you're
right,
the only one. You're not
I'm
the
just
only
are not
one.
saying,
worthy of it.
we know there's a couple of them that it
Yeah.
just never worked. It just never
Yeah.
worked. It just
They
wasn't gonna
won't
work.
let it work. They won't let it
Right.
work, Jake. We'll just say
See
that.
what I'm saying? So,
Hmm.
but as far as a blended family, it's something that's really very near and dear to my heart because I'm the product of a blended family.
Okay.
My mother was married prior and had my sister.
Yes.
My father was married prior and had my two oldest brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
They got together and had me.
Yes.
Okay.
So my sister and my brothers, we were raised together. And then my oldest brother, he's so much older, he was gone, that
Right.
was coming up because of the age difference.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was like you said, everything y'all named, it's going to be hard. You got to listen, give your ears a chance. All of those were put on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the other aspect of experience about blended families you talk about is the marriage thing and the small kids and especially when it's just the early stages. But y'all know I'm the only one that been there with some baby kids and running home telling, you know, that now you got the beef with the daddy. Now the daddy around there telling the mama, don't he can't be around and take my daughter get no ice cream. It causes problems in trying to blend sometimes when you got, you know, you can have that little
Egos.
out of control. Y'all know them
Well,
firecrackers.
cause,
Every
because
family got one or two of them firecrackers that just
and
don't
it's
let nothing mesh.
yeah, and it's not just the firecracker. It's the egos.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah, that's
it's
what I
the
mean. Yeah,
egos
yeah,
that are involved that just won't let it be. What Celeste said, we just naturally became a part of each other.
right,
So you just never even thought of it being any different. Every family isn't like that. I know my family was like that. We didn't make a difference. When
sure,
my
sure,
mother remarried and, her husband had 10 siblings. You know what I mean? It's like a tribe of them. You know what I mean?
right.
So when they
Eh,
came, and then I have people that ask me today because they kind of know, my family background. So then now when I'm speaking about this aunt and I say aunt this and they be like, oh, is that your real aunt? Or is that, I'm like, what? They're all my real aunts. Like,
right.
where do you do that at? So what are you talking about? But people do make that distinction.
They
And
do.
I'm like, but my relationship with who you call not my real aunt is better than the one you have with your real aunt.
Right.
So I
Yes, yes,
don't
yes.
really
That's right.
understand
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Because at the end of the day, children don't know about no biological. If you ask a small child who's your mother, your father, they're gonna tell you who's feeding them, who's providing for them, who's taking care of them, loving them, who's there for them every day. They're not gonna talk about no whose blood I got
exactly.
or anything like that. So
Exactly.
as you just said, the stepfather would be the one that stepped up. You
Yes.
see what I mean? And being there more than the biological did. And we
Hmm.
all know the biggest story ever hit was Shaq's dad. I think that was probably one of the biggest ones where the biological father, he said didn't bother. He even wrote a rap about it, a song or something like that about it. But it was one of the biggest ones where that's the unfortunate reality where the biological didn't bother, but the stepfather stepped in,
That's right.
and Shaq said, "That's my daddy. That's my father."
And see,
And
my dad and my
yeah,
stepfather would talk on the phone. They had a relationship, albeit not necessarily in person because they were on different coasts, but
Mhm.
they definitely had a relationship. There were things that happened when, my brothers and I were growing up that, my mom had to make that phone call to my dad to say, hey, listen,
Mhm.
I need for him to do this, this, and this. And I'm letting you know this now because this is how it's going to be. I'm not asking permission, but I am letting you know.
Be
I'm
okay with
putting
that.
that out there so that you'll understand what's
Mhm.
happening because he's the one that's here. And
Mhm.
so I always respected my parents as a whole for doing that. So then it was a great indicator for me when I later had the same thing. So um, you learn a lot from your family. You learn a lot from your parents and how they do. And it goes to show where I had some cousins through my stepfather who, when we got to be older, when they found out that their uncle was not my biological father, they were like, Uncle Nate's not your no. Where do you
right.
think I go every summer? And they were just, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So that kind of says a lot. That speaks a lot because he never made a difference about us.
That's
He
right. That's
never,
right.
it was never a difference between us. So I had that good reference. And so I tried to emulate that in my adulthood and in my blended families.
Well, when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about blended families because it was just my mom and dad, and and my brothers and sisters. Even though it was a blended family, because let me just say, I didn't know anything about it because we weren't raised that somebody was a part of something else. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because my mom was married before, and my older sister and brother is from her previous marriage, but we had no idea until we got older. I think that sometimes what happened is, you know, in the midst of things going wrong, and I'm going to say this, sometimes it becomes now an issue. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
An issue that now this belongs over here and you belong over there. But I like what you said, China. Nobody knows the difference. And I was just sitting here thinking, like, when did I become a blended family? I was always a blended family too. You know what I mean?
You
But
were
I
born
had
into one.
no idea. You know
My
what I mean?
Yeah.
kids didn't
Because I
either.
remember my sister
Yeah.
Carmen, like my sister Carmen is 9 years older than me. And I mean, I used to be up under my sister Carmen, like, this is, and I just remember how my dad treated her. You know what I mean? My dad, she had our last name because my dad adopted her, you know what I mean, and gave her our last name. I mean, even buying her cars and all stuff, I wouldn't have known the difference. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? And
Mhm.
it's just that, I think when we think about blended families, we kind of think about the chaos that can come behind it. You know what I mean? The chaos of, like Jay said, the baby daddy or the baby mama, you know what I mean? That come with drama. You can't take the kid here. And I mean, and that honestly, I had that in my marriage where you can't take the kid here. I don't want the kid around her. You just dating her. She not the wife yet. Blah blah. Just going. Yeah, yeah. But guess what? The whole time I was silent because that was not my battle to become a
Right.
part of. You see what I'm saying? But then over
Right.
time, it got so much better because sometimes you can fuel your own damage. You see what I'm saying? You can fuel your own damage, and it got a lot better. And all of that dissimated away because I didn't become a part of it. That's why I say Celeste silence. You know what I mean? And Celeste, you know me. I'm down for anything. Let's do this. But sometimes you gotta just sit
She could
silent.
be cray cray, y'all. She could be
Yeah,
cray
I
cray.
can. I definitely can.
And I handled it
I,
totally
I
different. But
definitely can.
I'm
So
like you. My kids didn't. My kids, I don't even know if they still make a distinction.
Right.
They were
well, you
born
raised them,
into it. When they
They
came
shouldn't.
home, that brother was there.
right?
And I think it's a funny joke, but it's really not funny. It's personal, but it's funny. I have to share it. My daughter was 8 and the other one maybe 4.5. And we went to the GYN doctor. That's when I was a helicopter mom. I wouldn't let them go anywhere. They went with me.
Hmm.
So the 8-year-old is filling
Helicopter
out the
mom.
paperwork. What you say, Jay?
The helicopter mom. No, I heard that terminology for the first time
Yeah.
this weekend. I didn't
I
know what
ain't
that
let
meant.
nobody be around them.
Yeah,
So my daughter was filling
right.
out that little entry form that you fill out, or when you go to the GYN doctor, you don't go, CJ, but when we go and they ask you all of these questions, and they asked how many natural pregnancies that I have, and I said 2. And so Jasmine kept writing, and she said, well, how many abortions? I said, none. She said, ooh, somebody wasn't born, because there's a brother and 2 sisters.
Wow.
So we came home, we had this whole conversation with them, and we were like, look, guys, da, da, da. And they did one of these numbers. Okay, cool. And never brought it up again.
And never brought it up
And
again.
never treated them any different, and
That's
never.
right. They know
And it's just
love.
so crazy the way they talk. They'll say in a minute, that's your mother to him. That ain't my mother.
Right.
That ain't my mother.
Well, because that's what you say to a sibling, right? There is no difference. And so
Exactly.
sometimes it's a little different when you're not raised in the same household, right?
Mm.
So then now you'll see some differences that come through, because it's that whole battle with the nurture versus nature type thing or
Mhm.
whatever.
Different
Right.
rules at different houses.
Right, and different rules at different
Mhm.
houses and things like that. But if you don't make a difference, but other people make a difference, I'll share with you how I had to combat that. So, my son and my daughter have different fathers, right? But I always told them, when other people would make a difference, you two come from the same place. You can't be no more brother and sister than that.
I know that.
So don't ever let nobody tell you anything different.
Mhm,
Stop. That's it.
mhm.
So for them, it was nothing else. So now when my son's father got married and started a family, people kept using the terminology half, and it was driving me crazy. And so here my son is about 7, 8 years old, and then with the boisterous voice, yeah, that's my half sister, that's my half sister. And I brought him over and I said to him, let me tell you something, that's your sister. Don't let anyone tell you that's your half sister. That's your sister. I don't ever want to hear you say anything different. He said, okay, mom. Then I called his father and I said to his father, I said, listen, I have step siblings, what my situation. I said, can you please, you and your wife sit down, have a conversation, because I don't know where he's getting it from. But I don't want him calling your daughter his half sister. That is his sister, period.
Mhm.
He respected what I said. I haven't heard anything since, and it's been 20 plus years. So I sometimes you have to say it in the way that you present it has to be a certain type of way. So I presented it to his father because that was the other parent.
Mhm,
I didn't fly all off the handle. I handled it.
mhm.
You could not do it, but this is my advice so that it doesn't become an issue later on down the line. That's it.
Sorry, y'all. Ooh,
So let me just ask y'all this. This is maybe everybody on here has been kumbaya and with they blended families,
Not
No,
always.
it's not always.
Okay, well, you know
On the
what?
court right now.
Like, okay, so we can keep it real, because when people listen to us, they love us because we're so transparent and we talk about things that that's going on in their everyday life. But the promising part of being a part of a blended family, I think we covered. But what about the negative and the adverse side of being a part of a blended family?
Oh gosh, I could start, but I talk all the time. Y'all go ahead, and I'll
No,
wait.
I mean, let the fellas talk, because I know I have some stories, but what about you, Jay?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm old seasoned with this thing.
Oh
I
God.
can't even remember
So
a time that I
share.
ever dated a woman that didn't have children.
Oh God.
But let's see, you know, reality is, y'all, that's an interesting point y'all are making, because where you do as a woman, now you're dating, you have children, and I think here's an interesting dynamic, that if you move into her house when she has children there already, that's her home established.
Mhm.
That to me is a harder transition for a man to come. And then that makes, like, you trying to discipline the kids, whatever. This ain't your house. It just, you know, creates more issue, more problems, more, been there, done that, seen different things. And here's another interesting dynamic we haven't talked about, but if the woman and so the woman and the man both have small children and now they
Mhm.
get married, come together,
Mhm.
that's a tough, thing to look at. But you
That
know,
was me and my husband. My children were small and he had small ones.
yeah, and then y'all all moved in together.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is an interesting blend and transition.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really goes bad though for me is when there's like the kids don't want to listen and you're realizing how much different values y'all might have trying to live together in the same roof. You're not clean, she's sloppy, you're neat, you want to stay up late, she want to go to bed early. Yeah, all this kind of stuff you find out that now all of a sudden these little things are becoming an issue. And you seem like, the kids want to play all over the house and you like, yo, I need a chill spot, and y'all ain't, all this kind of stuff. It makes it now where that ends up being a issue. You like,
A deal
okay,
breaker.
yeah, like,
A
all
deal
right, this,
breaker.
this,
Those
this,
little
this ain't,
intricacies, they can be done.
So yeah, definitely children that are like baby kids being straight up disrespectful. And you ain't my daddy.
Celeste.
You ain't my
Keep
daddy.
saying baby kids. I'm like, dang.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because shout out to all the kids out there that ain't like that. I'm just saying there's a lot that,
Yeah.
they well mannered, they're respectful, they've been raised, they just won't raise themselves to say whatever they want to say to adults.
But there's
So
a lot that's not. There's a
that's
lot
what I'm
that's
saying, right? So that's
vilified.
why I'm acknowledging that when I say the baby
You
kids.
gotta be part of this family. I'm gonna beat you like I'm gonna beat my kids, okay? And if you don't like it, then we all gonna be fighting. Because I'm gonna tell you that,
Right.
because I can't have
So
that.
that'd be a deal breaker. That'd
It's
be a
gonna be
deal
a
breaker.
deal breaker.
Dude, kid,
Somebody just come along and say, "Well, you can't be beating my kids." Well, your kids don't have no damn manners or nothing like that, and
right.
that's not gonna rub off on my kids.
You
Because I'm
better
gonna tell you
check
that
it.
right. They can't come here.
So that's a deal breaker,
Yeah,
right?
will.
See what I'm saying? Right, right. So that's what I mean. That kind of stuff like that is the
It is
bad side of
hard.
the blended family. Where it just, you realize you got different values and now they ain't gonna listen to you. And you like, okay, hold up.
And then they
But
gotta go
then
to
I
Just can't
guess,
the
pee in the
mom.
damn
but
floor. They ain't
see,
gonna
but then
pee
here's my
on the floor.
question. Right. Oh my God. So here's
Yeah.
my question then. So where was the time spent prior to this moving in for you to just now find out that
Go
they
ahead,
baby's
preach.
kids? Because
Preach.
baby's kids don't just pop up out of nowhere.
Preach.
So then that means that that's when it goes back to relationships, the relationship that you have with that person, because you got to ease into it. First of all, you should not, well, I ain't
We should
judging.
discuss this.
I ain't judging,
No,
but
go ahead
but
and say it.
moving in,
You can't
but
do
off of
that.
that moving in,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be living with that many people that got children in anybody's lifetime. Now that's just me. But I'm
Girl, I'd
not
have been through some
judging.
things, girl. I'd have been through some things.
But you make a good point. Those are things we need to talk about before we make those decisions, because there
And
is going to be differences.
and
It's
and conversations and including the children in those conversations is an important part of it. No one should be moving in with anybody till we have all spent some time
He done been
together.
through some things, he told you.
We done been through
Right.
some things
Yeah,
first
we
to
done did some
even
time
know.
together.
Y'all all
This
sitting
time
here acting
together.
like y'all know this. Everybody have a phantom syndrome that they put on at first. You know what? People think that,
Yeah.
okay, you know what? His ass a little bad. You know what I mean? But you know what? I'm just gonna overlook him for right now because I'm like so loving up on this one.
You're
But
right, but the
then,
conversation shouldn't be that the child is bad. The conversation should be, what are we going to do if we get to a situation where we can't agree on this? How are we going to solve it?
yeah,
So I'm not perfect
part.
by no means, but we try. Like just my son getting married to another young lady who
uh-huh.
has another whole family, to
Mhm.
me is a blended family. So we
Yes.
took a trip together and we just loved on each other and learned each other and found out, people's experiences and history so we could figure this out. Because at first we was both looking at each other like this. What the hell? Y'all do what for the holiday? And we had to come to an understanding, like this is how it was, but we're getting ready to build this new legacy, this new family. So now we have to figure out what it's going to look like for us. What works
Okay.
for you is not going to work for us because that's not what we do. You know, we don't celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Kwanzaa. You celebrate this, you celebrate that. Like, to your point, we don't let the kids run all over the house. We let them, where's the medium? And that's what we
Right.
work on. We work on that a lot.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but
So let's CG, because I feel like he wanted to say something. CG.
Oh, man, when I was in Florida, my girlfriend almost left me over this situation. Because my son, the way he operates in my household, he knows like I run a tight ship. I was raised by a drill instructor, so I don't really play when it comes to discipline and everything. We can have our fun, but when it comes to like discipline, I don't play about that, especially like when it comes to respect. So he gets to express himself around, his stepfather a lot differently than me. And also he's been exposed to, the whole, you don't get to tell my son this. So he's not really a disciplinarian in his life at all, to be honest. So like he gets to play the little games back and forth. If I go ask mom this, and she gonna give me something other than dad. And me, I'm more of a like, who I'm with, we're a united front. Like, because I've already laid out the expectations of like, hey, this is how it's gonna go down. So if I tell my girlfriend, hey, I need my son to do this, when I tell her something, if she has something that I've been telling her to do, that's an extension of me. So like there was one time when I told him like, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and he's like, he doesn't think that she's an extension of me, nor did I send her out there to like test him. And he was like, the first time he did it, she was telling me, it's like he didn't do it. He just kind of ignored me, kind of blew me off. And at first I was like, I didn't see it. So, what do I do? But like the second time I was like, okay, let me give her a specific set of things. So he didn't do it. I was like, hey, you got to tighten up. Like, but the first, I mean, it is kind of hard at first because like, everybody's raised differently. So if you can't really blend those morals together or find that common ground, I mean, this situation for her, she grew up, very structured as well. So like having a kid who doesn't listen, especially like very simple things, it could be a turn on. She doesn't have any kids. So, it's easy for her to just go find a guy who don't have any kids. So that's a lot of pressure for me.
That's
like,
big.
that's a lot of pressure for me to be like, I have a woman who doesn't have any kids, and like, you're a reflection of me and my leadership right now. So like, I really need you to tighten up right now, son, because I that started making me think like, dang, man, like, I'm about to lose a good woman because you out of pocket right now. And it's not because you're bad or anything. It's just because you're just being defiant for no reason. And
testing limits.
Just testing everything. And it was because I wasn't around.
Right.
But then, I sat him down, like, I was like, look, we're gonna have to do this right now. Like, I'm pretty sure she was uncomfortable at first. I was like, look, I told her to come out here and tell you this. Why are you sitting here lying about it? Because he tried to play it. I ain't here. All right, man. But it can be hard, trying to. This is my first blended family. Like,
so in your situation, CG, did you have the two of them together so that the three of you were having this conversation?
Yeah.
And so that can be uncomfortable, right? But it is so needed, because then now you're laying out the ground rules. And I think that 5 years old is old enough. I think 4 years old is old enough to sit down and lay down the ground rules when someone new is coming into our lives and what those expectations are. Because again, kids get to be a certain age, and you're calling it defiant because if you don't do what I say is defiant, but I just call it testing limits, right? I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm just saying that's really what he's doing, right? Because he's not a defiant kid. So therefore,
it wasn't testing no limits. He knew the limits. Because here's the thing, that's part of having that blended family. It's like, you go back over there to your other house and you got a certain set of freedoms that you try to bring back, and it's like, I got to recalibrate you over here because that's not how we roll over here.
Listen, every time. Every time.
My son's used to hearing from his mother, telling stuff. I don't care, man. I can say all this stuff. We going back to court anyway. He's used to hearing, you can't discipline my kid. And I had to talk to this man. I told him, I was like, look, man, you're around my son. I trust you around him. My son's safe around you. So, and if you weren't, then, you know, we obviously would have a problem. So look, man, if my son getting out of pocket, you got to put him back in because you're the man of the house.
I know that's
You're the man of this household. So, you know, I need him to, you know, have good examples of men, you know, that he's following. Like if he can walk all over you, then like, what is he following later on in life? He's got 2 paths to follow right now. So you gotta put him back in pocket. You got my blessing, man. Like put him in his place. So like, you know, this stuff can be very hard at times, you know, but
It's hard, but it's conversation. When I tell you, and I'm not there all the time, so I don't know, but my son has, you know, that song, Yours, Mine's, Ours. They got one child together and 2 separate. And when they've been parenting, because, you know, they didn't know anything about a blended family because ours didn't operate as a blended family. I didn't have the other mama in the picture. I didn't have any of that.
Right.
I had a child that wasn't my natural, but his mother was never in the picture. So
Okay.
it's totally different. So now we have 2 sets of, you know, parents, and we had to have conversations. Even when it came to discipline, if something happened,
Yep.
I said, call the mama. Who? I don't like her. I don't care. Call her. Call her.
That's right.
Call her man. They would come over. We would sit down and they would have attitudes. And I say, this is not
It's
how we
okay.
parent. If they don't
There
see
you
us
go.
at United Front, they're gonna get away with this nonsense. And it's not perfect, CJ, because now every now and then it slips.
You called
When
it
I tell you,
CJ.
no,
I did too
every
early, my
now and
bad.
then it slips. But for the most part, if my son puts him on punishment, he calls that mama in front of her. He says, I don't know how you want to handle it, but he's not allowed to do such and such. And she's to the point where she goes, your father said, and her man follow it.
That's right.
That's the
Finally
way it's
getting to
supposed
that.
to be.
It's
That's right.
finally getting to
that's a
that
blessing.
point.
If you got that, that's a
It didn't
blessing.
start
man.
like that. It didn't
'cause
start
I'm-
like that.
But it takes
I'm
time,
not at that,
CG.
I'm not at that point. We can't parallel parent. I mean,
But
we can't co-parent. We're at the point right now where it's parallel parenting. Like you do what you do, we do what we do.
But we're
Like,
gonna have to work on that.
no, there's no
It's
working on it.
confusing. Well, you know
That's what the porch
why?
is for.
Okay,
There's-
and you say that, but you got to also remember the child. I'm not judging. I'm just giving you another perspective.
Mhm.
I'm the child, and I get to do both. I'm confused. You guys don't even have it together, so you want me to have it together?
No, but I'm saying I get exactly what you're saying, but like that's an unrealistic. Like if you've been trying that from birth up till 7, 8 years old, that kid's getting towards where they're about to be a teenager. You don't really have like you can't turn back the clock once it's been opened up. So
No, you're right.
you gotta move to something else where it's like, hey, this is just what it is. Like this is just the reality of the situation we have. So what you got going over there, these are your boundaries over there. These are your boundaries over there with that family over there. What you got over there, these are your boundaries over here. Because I can't control what goes on in anybody
No,
else's
you
house.
can't.
That is true. That's
you
true.
can't.
And you're doing the
Yeah.
right thing because as long as you keep that communication open with your child to let them know, I don't have control over what happens here. But if you want to be this type of man, then your character needs to be the same, whether you're here or whether you're there. And by you letting him know that, you're putting certain responsibilities on him early on for him to understand I need to be consistent wherever I am. And so that messaging just needs to always go to them because you're right. You can't control the other situation.
Yeah, because like with my
That's it.
situation,
It's really hard.
on average, you're gonna have a guy who's usually combative with the other man. I'm not combative with the other man. I'm actually talking him up. I'm trying
Right.
because at the end of the day, my son has to be covered by men on both
Come on,
sides.
man.
Mhm.
Come
That's
on now.
right.
So-
That's right.
So it's not
Yeah.
for me to sit down and break him down and undermine him to my son. And I tell my son every day, like, you are underneath that man's household. You are underneath that man's roof. You need to respect him. I don't care if your mother doesn't respect him. I'm telling you, you have to respect him. So it's
That
a lot.
part.
It's a
Yeah,
lot
we don't-
different.
Yeah, we don't want
Right.
to be
That's
combative.
why I said. That's why I said you
That-
speaking to him about that character in him is always going to be the greatest lesson for him going forward. One, because you're not putting them down. Two, because you're letting him know you need to be consistent. And the one thing I have learned about children, even when you look at their school schedules, I would go to my kids' school and this week they're on A schedule and this week they're on B schedule. And I would be like, oh my God, I'm so confused. How did the kids know? And the administrators would let me know somehow the kids have learned to adapt and they understand and they do it like this. Me coming in from the outside, overthinking it, not understanding it, I don't get it, but they get it. So that messaging that you're giving to your son is awesome because you're still teaching him about what he's supposed to do. This is your responsibility. You live there. You need to follow the rules and be respectful, just like you need to do when you're here. And so that messaging will hopefully take you into a greater situation, even though part of the situation is not that great.
I
I
think
just
that
want to
I
what
say,
you
applaud
said,
you.
CG,
TG,
shut,
is the biggest
uh,
point. Is I think that, and this probably jumps back onto what Chauncey is saying as well. Everything that you're doing for your baby is is always going to be that work in progress. But what's going to be the end result is when you think that your work you have done is challenging or even in vain, I can guarantee you when that boy gets up of age, that mom may end up losing that connection and you may gain it because at the end of the day, nobody wants to be, if you think about children don't want to live chaotic lives. You know what I mean?
They don't.
They
They
don't.
don't.
They
And
don't.
that's a bunch of bullshit when people put it out there that because you have no kind of structure, you just all over the place, and just because you mom, you think that shit is going to stick to the wall. That is bullshit. That really doesn't happen because what's going to happen is they're going to the person that gave them stability. You know what I mean? And and her cards will be played and it'll be done. You know what I mean? So you keep doing what you're doing. So I'm gonna give you a clap up. And something you was gonna say, Jay, go ahead.
oh yeah, first of all, all right, I'm gonna give you a clap up too, CG.
That's our new thing.
Yeah,
You
clap
know,
up.
I was
Okay.
like, okay, it felt right. But yeah, shout out to you, man. First of all, it just warmed my heart, brother, to hear you say that you approached that gentleman in peace and respect. To bring about understanding and love as men, that we can do that for each other, man. I
Yeah.
applaud you, salute you, because you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, it's not always that way. It's a lot of combative, it's a lot of egos, it's a lot of that going on. And what we cannot lose sight of is that our children are every day, they're looking at us and all the human beings around them that are constantly shaping and forming them into
Yeah.
what they should do and how they should respond and how they live, because this is what they're here on the earth to do, is learn from us, good, bad, or indifferent. So for you to encourage that, brother, I really appreciate hearing you say that, to try to make the family
Yeah.
dynamic work by letting him know, man, I respect you as the head of the household,
That's right.
and this is what we do as men. We support each other, and I appreciate you for that, man. I'm gonna pay it
For
forward any
sure.
opportunity I get. But other aspect too, I feel you on dating a woman with no kids, because I had a woman with no kids before, and it was a situation where we were going out somewhere, and it was ended up. Unfortunately, it was my weekend when I had him. It was my weekend, and I forgot, and so it was she wasn't quite prepared for it. When I told
Mm.
her, I said, "Hey, we're gonna change plans. Go get some pizza." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I kind of threw it in there, and I got to pick the kids up. And she's like, "Oh, okay." You know, and it was one of those things where it was early on, when they got along good, but I felt too like, man, she has no kids. I got it. Y'all can't mess this up. Y'all can't be the reason we don't date. You see what I'm saying? Because she don't have no kids. So she's like, I got zero tolerance for somebody else's, right? I ain't got my own. So I ain't gonna deal with nobody else's. But it ended up being it just didn't work
What
out
you say,
anyway. But
Chauncey?
I
but
mean,
that's
no,
that's an
not
interesting thing. I
necessarily.
feel you on that, brother. When you have to have that talk with your kid, like, man, listen, I'm really wanting to date her. This is a good woman here. We want to work together, and having that conversation with him is important for him to understand through you. She is a representative that he has to respect and love, because she's earned that. You're not just throwing it out there. She's earned that, and that's important because they need to know. Children need to know how to love, how to resolve, how we get along. They need to learn all of that. And this is why it's
Yep.
important for us to be amicable as much as we can when the exes, when they break up, regardless of what they did financially or what they did with other relationships.
Yeah.
We have to understand that the children's, you know, my daughter's going to look at me as a type of man she's going to get involved with. You see what I'm saying? Our sons are going to look at their mothers as a type of woman. So how we handle the situations and what we do in the blended families, it really plays, especially in the developmental years. Now, they teenagers and a little older, that's different. But we talking small kids, because I married my exes and I adopted them. They were 3 and 4 years old.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. And they're now 27 and 28.
And
So
like my mom used to always say, little faces got big ears.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Huge
So
ear.
you're right, Chauncey. They'll try
So
to work with
they
the
hear,
situation and create division
mhm,
if they can. Like they're gonna try
listen,
to manipulate one of the, oh no, I don't want, because what it is you're giving all that time. You're the custodial parent. Now you got somebody else. You're giving your time to somebody else's, because kids want to be loved. They want all the attention. You
right.
know, so that's important to have that conversation. But they will try to get in the way. Come knocking on the bedroom door. Get off my mama.
Oh,
Yeah.
you see, why you go?
Jay done been through some things. He done
I
been through
tell
some
you, I've
things.
been through
Oh
some
man.
things now. I've been through some things.
He's so crazy. So
Little faces got
I
big.
think this was a really good episode. And just in closing it up, I just want to get everybody's quick final thought, because mine is, a blended family definitely can work. Most of us don't even realize, like I said, we're in a blended family. It's just acceptance. You know what I mean? It's huge. It's acceptance. And acceptance and boundaries, you know what I mean, at the same time. So I think that it's all a work in progress. And family is family. You know what I mean? Some family can stay, some family has just gotta go. You know what I mean? They could be your blood and be even worse. You know what I mean? So, but it is what it is, and family is something that we are thankful to have. But that's my thought. What do you think, Chauncey?
I echo your sentiments. Blended families can definitely work. They've been working for centuries, and we're all a part of some sort of blended family, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
But it's about not making that the issue,
Mhm.
right? And addressing whatever small issues we have before they become big issues. So communication is always key, and always trying until that child is of a certain age, because even though after that certain age, you can't stop trying. That is your obligation to that child, is to always try your best and do your best.
Absolutely. CG?
Man, I'm just gonna piggyback off Chauncey and just say communication's key. That's what's helped me with my situation, and it's just gotten better and better. I mean, this is the second relationship I've had with my son, so and it's all about communication at the end of the day. I mean, and just keeping on pressing it, even if you're uncomfortable having it, just keep pressing communication so that you can get those, so that you can get any issue resolved or whatever. Because I mean, especially for those of us who are really new to this, man, like you don't know what's going on with all parties included. So just keep pressing that communication, and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Celeste?
I agree. I agree. Communication is everything. I just wish that people that go into blended relationships understand that this is a journey no different than any other journey, right? Your hair journey, your weight loss journey. You got to work at it. And you got to set time aside and work at it. And
Absolutely.
build that communication skills and help the other person. Some people are crying for some help on how to deal with this blended family. Some of them don't know.
Yeah.
So definitely taking a lot of time, setting time aside is really major. I mean, I ain't going to the gym, but I'll go work on a blended family in a minute. But I'm just not. But just work at it and part time for it. Make appointments to work at it and have conversations.
Yeah.
JB?
I agree with what Celeste and earlier what CG was saying. Yeah, listen, if you love somebody with all your heart, you believe this is that person for you, you won't lose sight of that because you're not getting along. You'll find a way that you love this person that say, you know what, they're worth the work. All right, I want to put in the work for me, for us, and you'll become like what CG said early on, a better listener, right? You'll become a better listener, and you'll want to try to make it work, and then so that love, honor, dignity, and respect, and all those things that you can't compromise, that are priceless, will stay intact in the relationship,
Mm.
with the family. so that we'll always have that. And I think that's how you make it work. And, because at the end of the day, it's about love and how you're treating each other, how you're understanding each other. So you love somebody enough that it's worth it. That you would be willing to love their children, their family, and the extended families. Y'all know the in-laws that are sometimes be the outlaws. And I have some
Yeah.
in-laws now from my first marriage and my second marriage that we super cool. We still cool.
Right.
And I still get unk sometimes when I see them hearing about, now they ain't like that with everybody.
Yeah.
But there's some
It's
that
not.
that the love, that's what I'm saying, that the love, the respect, you know what I'm saying, the dignity was always there, and how you treated each other, and that would at the end of the day should be what we have, the fabric that we just don't lose that,
Yeah, I
um,
think that's good.
because of anything else, so shout out to everybody who's making it work, and the blended families with love, because that's all it'll take for us to each one of us to say, let me get my own way and love somebody enough to make it work.
Shout
That's
out.
a good one, Jay. I appreciate that.
Double clap. Yeah.
Oh, wait, what?
Double clap.
We got to practice.
Yeah, double
Yeah,
clap.
yeah. I don't know. Can I just a moment of honesty there. I don't know. The double clap thing is not quite manly enough.
not manly.
Is there a men's version?
No.
We
If you put a
that-
snap on the end of it, DJ.
It's like that.
well, we got maybe just do. I don't know.
It's just like
So,
that.
Or
We
City
just gonna
Hall.
fist bump.
I don't think I've ever did the high clap.
You ain't been to church.
I'm saying now, hold
I'm
on.
just playing. I'm just playing.
You know he in the church.
Right. I'm at
So
it.
you
I'm
did a
definitely
double
at it.
clap. You
You
did the
did the double clap. You know, it's always that one on the end of the pew. They doing the double clap. You trying to catch up, so you can blend in with them. That's like a
Yeah,
blended family. You
I
trying to blend
know,
in with
yeah.
them. Yeah, I had some
Oh,
coordination
goodness.
to do that. But this was a great
Coordination.
episode, guys. Everyone catch us again Wednesday when we drop our new episode. You can also follow us on our social media pages. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Joining me tonight is my team. I am your girl Kimmy, and we are here with
Chauncey.
Celeste.
EG.
JB from NC.
I knew he was gonna say that. So everybody have a good night on purpose, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.